If there were a competition for the most modest and unassuming flowering plant, then short odds would certainly be on Whitlow-grass, because a place like this, bare gravel in a quarry or by the side of the road, is not the kind of place you would expect any plant to choose as its preferred habitat. But here it is. In fact, one of its favourite habitats in this part of the country is along the old railway lines of Borden and Mona. Now this is a particularly difficult, challenging place for a flowering plant, because Whitlow-grass doesn't have the morphological or physiological adaptations that certain species of mosses which can thrive in a habitat like this have, which makes it all the more challenging for a flowering plant like Whitlow-grass. In situations such as this, the plants are diminutive, scarcely taller than the mosses with which they share the bare sand and gravel. But in more fertile locations where desiccation is less of a problem, they can be up to 15 centimetres or more in height. It has this tiny rosette of slightly fleshy leaves, fleshy in order to retain water for longer, and a distinctive coat of Y-shaped hairs in order to condense overnight dew. Each plant has a cluster of up to 10 disproportionately large white flowers, structurally very typical of its cabbage family, but the 4 petals are so deeply cleft you would think there are 8. There are the usual 4 sepals in 2 unequal pairs, often with a distinctive crimson fringe, and 6 stamens, 2 pairs of slightly longer ones and 2 shorter single ones. 1 pair of sepals is boat-shaped, and this pair stands behind the pairs of slightly longer stamens, on either side of which there is a tiny green nectary. In spite of a floral design that is clearly intended to attract pollinating insects, and which does so very successfully in most of its crucifer cousins, Whitlow-grass is hardly ever visited by insects and is almost invariably self-pollinated and produces abundant fertile seed. One result of this is that small genetic mutations can be retained and build up in individual populations, making for enormous taxonomic confusion for the few botanists who concern themselves about such things. And hardly anything feeds on the leaves, just 2 or 3 cabbage weevils, and the occasional orange-tipped caterpillar. The Latin name for Whitlow-grass is Aerophila verna, which is a lovely example of scientific tautology, because Aerophila, air is the Greek word for spring, so Aerophila, lover of spring, and verna in Latin means exactly the same thing. But what about the English name, Whitlow-grass? Well, a whitlow is a painful, pus-filled infection of the skin at the corner of the fingernail or toenail. Not all that common, and nowadays treated with antiviral drugs because it's caused by a herpes virus. But in the absence of modern drugs, you could make a poultice with the plant and try that. Having said that, and in spite of the fact that Whitlow-grass is the name that was given to the plant by the great herbalist Nicholas Culpeper in the 17th century, it doesn't actually seem to have been used much in this part of Europe for that purpose, although it was in other parts of the world where the plant is quite widespread. The Irish name for Whitlow-grass is Busawn anager. Busawn means a little purse, and anager is the word for decaying or corrupt matter. So it seems to be a kind of combination of a reference to the fruits, which are disproportionately large, just as the flowers are for such a tiny plant, and the pus associated with whitlows. And if you look carefully at the leaf, you'll see that towards the tip of the leaf there is what looks like a little tooth. Now, it was supposed by those who took the doctrine of signatures very seriously that this was a hint from God that the treatment of whitlows was the purpose for which he had created this otherwise insignificant little flower.